favor to ask of you. Will you repeat after me? Shut up! Dance with me. Will you do that with me? 1, 2, 3.
Shut up!
Dance with me. One more time. 1, 2, 3.
Shut up!
Yeah.
Let's go!
Don't you dare look back. Just keep your eyes on me. I said you're holding back. She said,
Shut up!
dance with me. This woman is my destiny. She said, ooh,
Shut up!
dance with me.
Shut up!
God almighty.
Hell,
We just get endless mileage out of that clip now. It never gets.
that's our good, just generic show opening. For sure. So, how is it going tonight? Special guest, the real deal himself, all the way down in Mahia, Texas, boss. Texas chapter of Dead Pit. Don, director J Real.
Down here, you have to say my hair.
Well,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's amazing how certain areas of the country you do that. Like you can do that here, right? But Garrett up there does it as well. Like Chiner. He says Chiner.
He does.
It's just a, I don't know.
There'll be certain times I'll catch him saying that stuff. I wish I had like a list of the different, like he puts ER on different words. It's always killer.
But kind of an impromptu show. This is an idea. This is Uncle Bill's show here. Tell us about it, Uncle Bill.
Well, this came about when we were doing the Shudder 101 Scariest Moments list. And we were like throwing back and forth ideas of like what would be a different type of show to do based on like a list countdown kind of show. And I just thought, well, what about like rather than the best, what about just like the worst moments that you can think of from like certain horror films?
Yeah.
And I want to just say like on top that there's a couple of rules for this list, I guess. So nothing on this list can be really like intentionally funny. Like it can't be meant to be funny. It has to be something that was like meant to be serious in a film, but like turned out to be either like just god awful, cringe inducing, like something about it is just off.
Basically the equivalent of cracking a fart in church, right?
I don't know if that's meant to be serious, but yeah, I guess church is meant to be serious.
Church is serious.
Yeah.
But it's still
And there's only
funny.
There's only one on here where you could argue maybe that it was intentionally like meant to be funny, but I don't know. And when we come to it, we'll talk about it. I don't know. I'm not even entirely sure that the director of this movie thought it was funny. But
We're going to do a little bit of a roll call in here tonight before we get started, and there's a couple things we need to discuss. Uncle Bill's going on vacation here, so it's probably the last show you do for a while.
At least for the next 10 or 11 days, yeah.
You're going, I'm jealous because you're going to the beach where Leonardo DiCaprio went to back in the day, right?
That's right.
Island.
Shutter Island. Yep.
Crash 517. He says there are a lot of bad scenes in Halloween Ends. We've got Carnage 6X. Crash, I did not see Dawn of the Dead at the theater. It was playing nowhere near me. We were originally thinking about going, but that whole weekend up until, what day was that? Last Saturday, I guess I could have, but I didn't spend the night in Lexington. I was in that area. But no, I didn't. I don't think you did either, did you? Either of you guys?
No.
I'm jealous because I can't see in 3D. I'm blind in my left eye. So, and they did the same thing with Jaws earlier, this year. I really wanted to see that. And they had it at the theater in Waco. So I could have seen it, but it would have been pointless because I can't, technically I can't see in 3D. It doesn't work for me. The melding of the images or whatever you call it, I can't.
Yeah.
Didn't work for me.
Venom Brew Studios. Carlos, he says, "Hola, señor Bill and señor CK.
You want some tequila, man? Something
Yo,
sweet?
Don tequila, something sweet, amigo." Oh, Curly Jaws. He went to House by the Cemetery store in Indiana earlier today. Did you see that, Uncle Bill?
Yeah, the House by the Cemetery toy store.
Yeah, it was killer. Rob Romano. The pick of Troll 2 and the thumbnail's epic. Oh my god! We have Scratch Bueno, Jostradamus. Oh hell, I've lost my spot here, boss. Rambo Raff is in the house tonight. Robert Scott. Venom Brew Studios, Eric Samuel Perry. The Mayor. Wanted to know if that was what gummies did to Steve. It made him violent. I think Steve's naturally violent. The gummies may calm him down.
Yeah, Steve's personality is one of violence.
Who is he? Who is he? And I should know this, but I don't. Who is he hollering at in that clip?
Dana.
Dana. Okay.
No.
His wife. Well, okay.
It was the dogs, I think. The dogs they have about 87 dogs. So
okay.
They're always like yelping and barking and shit. And what's funny is like, I think that was on one of the Captain's Quarter shows. When he just lets out that big long yell, those dogs shut the fuck up. Like that insane. Like,
He's got them trained.
He means business.
Steve beats the shit out of them dogs.
Movie junkie John, Real Fright Wraith. Oh God, yeah. Rambo's bringing up the Hitcher.
Yeah.
Well, you could do the Hitcher remake and Hitcher 2. Both.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like this is by no means a complete list. This is just the ones that immediately like came to my mind. So anybody can throw anything out there and we'll talk about it. You know.
Well, before we signed on here, Uncle Bill, you said be sure to remind you to say something, or there's something that you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's related to the subject, but
no, it's not at all related to anything that we're getting ready to do with this show. But I just thought it was fucking hilarious. So earlier today, well, let me back up a little bit. All the schools apparently in Kentucky now have to have a security resource officer, okay? And that being said, like the school that my kids go to now has like a new security officer. And yesterday or the day before was the first day that he was like at school, and there's a big bunch of like drama about it and whatever, all this other stuff. Anyway, we were just pulling up and dropping the kids off, and he always like stays like when you drop your kids off, he's like right there in the front of the school and like watches people come up. So anyway, my little girl had like she had cheer tonight for a ball game, and he was there. I guess he has to be at like all the functions and stuff too. So I'm walking out with her and Savannah and Fox and everybody, and like we get out to, and he's like standing like as you first walk out the door there, and he's like leaning against a pole, and I just walked by him because I didn't think anything about it, and he goes, "Hey," and I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Every time that you pull up to drop your kids off, the only thing I can think of is DEADPIT.com." And I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "You know the show?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "I know the show. I've been listening to it for a long time." I was like, "What?"
How old is he?
I'd say 30s, something like that.
So he probably was listening in a while, yeah. Our buddy Radkin started listening to us when he was in the 3rd grade.
Yeah, so apparently anytime that I pull up to the school, in his head is like the dead pit like thing. But I thought that was great because like for some reason, and I've yet to figure this out, but like cops really seem to like our show. And I don't know why that is. We got pulled over one time, and the guy walked up to I don't know if you remember this or not.
Christmasburg police, yeah.
The guy just walked up to us and he was like, "Oh, dead pit, yeah, you guys go ahead."
We're underground sensations here in Eastern Kentucky.
You
Critter
Get out of
Busters
tickets.
in here. Yeah, if I ever got tickets, I'd try. I remember the guy. I think he's still a police officer. So we'll see. Suspirian Knight said Steve is the Abdullah the Butcher of Dead Pit.
That's true. Yeah. Completely unhinged.
Yeah.
Just like running around.
Robert Scott complimenting my hat here, bulls. Or it could be Jay's hat. Jay's got a hat on too. But this one that I've got on is the limited edition Halloween Dead Pit beanie that glows in the fucking dark, bulls. It's
Well,
glow in the dark thread.
Speaking of Dead Pit merchandise, my sister came to visit 2-3 weeks ago. She stayed a week. That my neighbor's got a guest house he let her stay in, and had a nice visit with her. And my niece came down because we had a little gathering. My little short film has picked up some awards and such, and so she wanted to have a little gathering, kind of celebrating that. She gave me this hat, this director's hat. But anyway, my niece and her husband came down wearing my shirt with me half naked, the Dead Pit shirt. And I and that just, oh man, I just was floored by that. But they wore them proudly.
The J. Real Calvin Klein shirt.
Yeah.
That
But yeah, you made 2 sales at least, and I think they bought some stickers, And
well, Steve has one too. Steve got one, so there you go.
There it is, boys.
Oh my God!
And it's 35% off, bulls, today.
Oh, I'm on sale. Well, good.
There you go. It's a good plug for shop.deadpit.com, bulls.
That's awesome.
Oh Lord, have mercy. That exists. I have to get used to the fact that exists. Would it be rude for me to suck on a sucker?
No, you do whatever.
I never get trick or treaters, so I have all the candy, boy.
Well, that's good reason to get candy every year. We don't ever have trick or treaters either, but there's a chance. There's a small chance, so you got to get the candy.
Who loves you, baby?
For the little son bitches.
No one knows what that reference is. Hardly nobody knows who that reference is. But
I grew up. Telly Savalas, come on now, you gotta know that.
I remember when that was on prime time, Kojak. So I'm old as fuck.
Let's see. Ghostface 320. Born to Be Rad, MacBoy Color, Little Dumpling Books. All right, boys. So, Uncle Bill, have at it. We got some movies to talk about. The worst scenes in horror movie history.
Just well, if you've got my list, then you're going to have to read it off because my phone just died and I don't feel like going to get a fucking charger.
Get you a charger.
No.
I'm just going to... Do you want me to go through these from... like first from last to first? Is that
yeah, that's how we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, so number 20 on the Uncle Bill list, worst horror scenes of all time. Jason turns into a kid when he gets hit with sewage in Friday the 13th, Part 8.
Now, there's a whole bunch of like aspects to this scene that make it like one of the worst to me. Number one, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, he's down in the sewer pipe or whatever, and like toxic waste comes flooding over him. He turns back into like the child Jason, and then he melts. He just turns into like... I think it's also the first time you get to see him without his like mask, which looks... in and of itself, that could be like a scene. But yeah, okay. So yeah, like Rambo's saying, first of all, does toxic waste just go underneath like New York every night? Second of all, why does toxic waste turn Jason into a child again? Like some sort of like time warp to the toxic
director never seen the original Friday the 13th either. Jason did not have a full fucking head of hair and looked like a normal kid. So they didn't even go like, I mean, it would have still sucked, but it would have been at least a little bit cool if he had looked like, the Mongoloid Jason. But no, he was just like a regular kid.
Yeah, he just looks like, and that fucking pumpkin headed Jason that they've
The
got in that
rotted
movie.
pumpkin
Yeah.
Jason. Yeah.
So everything about that scene just always like stuck with me and bothered me because really like people shit on that movie, but I like Jason Takes Manhattan. It's like one of the last ones that really is like paramount and decent in that way. But that one scene, man, it just always is stuck with me as being ridiculous.
I remember though when Rambo's said that up there about the toxic waste flooding the sewage in New York. I just assumed that was true when I was a kid. I was like, oh hell, what? New York, man. But yeah. I always have, for some reason, it must be where it was the one that I saw, the first one I saw in theaters as a kid. But I've always had like a soft spot for Friday the 13th Part 8, but it's not a good movie at
Well,
all.
they're all fun. I think every one of the Friday the 13th movies are fun on different levels. They're like comic book movies to me. They're horror slapstick.
Yeah.
Um, it's they all have different levels of enjoyment. Some are definitely worse than others. Part 4 is the best, but they're all have different levels. But the thing about that, Jason turning into a kid, with this toxic sewage and whatever. I mean, what were we supposed to take out of that? Because by that time, Jason's a zombie, right? He's the zombie Jason.
Yeah.
And so we were supposed to connect with him on any kind of personal level by that time because he's a zombie. He's a walking, corpse basically. So we're supposed to have any sort of personal connection with the character.
He's like a waterlogged slug in
Yeah.
this movie too.
Yeah.
Every time he walks, it's like
It's just. Yeah.
I actually like the look of Jason overall, aside from the mat. Like
I do too. If they
mask.
had never unmasked him, then that would have been awesome. But they had to, and
Yeah.
that's probably the worst look for Jason ever. Honestly, like out of any of those or any of those faces underneath the mask, that's got to be the worst one. It
Well,
just
I
looks
think
it looks like a Halloween mask that you buy at a store.
it was the end of an era, though, because to me, the Friday the 13th films after this was never the same for some reason. It just did not. The Paramount 8 is what I always call those, because after those, it was just like they had too big of a budget to use. They tried to go above and beyond what they needed to. And one of my picks, and this is not in the list, but this is one that I thought of pretty much immediately, was the follow-up to Friday the 13th Part 8. It was like 4 years later. And this was towards the end of the movie, and Jason goes to hell. The final Friday, boys. The final Friday, right? So the whole plot of Jason Goes to Hell they changed it completely, basically. Like, Jason has this big slug thing that crawls in and out of his asshole or his mouth, either one, and can assume, crawl in somebody else's ass, somebody else's mouth, or whatever, and he'll assume,
Yeah.
he'll assume take over their bodies, right? And there's something about Jason has all of their souls or something. I don't know, right? I don't know what the fuck they were doing. Jason.
They don't either. That's what makes that movie great.
But the end of the movie, where is it his sister or his niece or something stabs him with that damn whatever that knife is or whatever it was, and slow motion, man. It was like the shittiest looking CGI to this day. Like Jason's like in slow motion. And like these little fucking like fireballs come shooting out of his chest.
Yeah. Yep.
Pew, pew. Right. And I remember even as a kid, I was like, damn, this is fucking stupid. This isn't Friday the 13th. So
They really tried to mix and match like Nightmare on Elm Street with Friday the 13th in that movie too, and like Night of the Creeps for just good measure, I guess, with the all the slug shit.
And of course, Freddy's glove at the end.
Yeah, I definitely remember that scene. Like going back and looking at Jason Goes to Hell, there's a lot of scenes in that movie that could be like the guy breaking his fingers for no fucking reason in the jail. Like I never understood that either. But
didn't you think that this almost felt like this whole movie was filmed like an X-Files episode, or it had that
Yeah.
look to it? Like
Yeah,
it
it did.
didn't really look like a mainstream movie or anything. One thing I'll give New Line though, because this is the first one that they did, the marketing of that movie was freaking killer. Like they did a great job marketing the movie, but a lot of the stuff that you see in the marketing materials never in the movie, like the chrome mask. What the fuck was the deal with that? That was never in the movie at all. And I always wondered that as a kid too. I was like, that mask is so cool, but yeah.
whatever happened to it? Yeah.
Strange Tennessean, what's going on? He says he loves the hat too. Well, members of DEADPIT on Patreon have access. There's a few more of these left if anybody wants them. So.
Well, I'll chime in, which I just thought of it since you brought up Friday the 13th, and this is what I don't know if this goes against your rule or not. I don't know if this was intended to be funny, but is freaky as Crispin Glover is, I doubt it was intended to be funny. That dance of his in part 4, that jerky dance he does, that is like one of the best parts of the movie is that dance that he does.
You're right, Jay. That's like that is in the spirit of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I seriously doubt that was intended to be funny. It was just Crispin Glover being Crispin Glover.
Didn't they say that he improvised that? That wasn't really. They just told him to dance, and
I can't imagine it's anything but him.
They brought in a choreographer, and they were like, "Here's this shit."
But that's one of my favorite scenes, period, of any movie is his dance in part 4. My God.
And that almost transcends shittiness, though, and becomes great just because of the level of commitment that he puts into something so ridiculous. Like
it's like a full body epileptic seizure or something. It's like, but yeah, I love that.
I'd always heard that too. Like Scratch Burno was saying that he was dancing to Back in Black. That was the actual song that was playing.
Huh.
And I'm just trying to imagine that because, like, I don't know how you would make those dance moves out of like that song, but I don't know how you'd make those dance moves out of
anybody could do it. It would be him.
Yeah.
Got some people really showing some love for Jason Goes to Hell. Rambo Raff said it was his favorite movie of the franchise. And Stuntman Mark likes it as well. Hey, I'll give it this. Like, of all the New Line movies, I think it's probably the best one. Wouldn't you?
I like Stephen Williams' character in that movie. That to me is like one of the best parts of that movie. Going back and watching it after like hating it for a long time, it's really not that bad of a film. It's just like all over the place. They don't really know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. Leslie Jordan is in it too, who passed away recently.
Oh, he is in it, yeah.
Yeah. So I was always a big fan of his from not only Jason Goes to Hell, but also Ski Patrol, which is finally coming out on Blu-ray. I love that movie. I saw that movie in the theater down here at the Strand, and I think it was like I was like 9 or 10 years old whenever that came out. So yeah, I mean, I was sad to hear about that, but anyway, let's continue on, boys. Number 19, and this is a movie that I have not seen in many years, but I definitely remembered what you're talking about. The sequel to the original Hills Have Eyes. Now, let's not confuse people, because this is one of those rare series that has a original Hills Have Eyes, a sequel to the original Hills Have Eyes, a remake to the Hills Have Eyes, and a sequel to that remake of Hills Have Eyes.
Right.
We're talking about the first sequel.
It's a shame that you have to explain that, but
The Hills Have Eyes
sequel.
Part 2. There's a scene in it where there's the brother and sister German Shepherd dogs from the first movie.
Has a flashback.
Yeah, one of the dogs, I think is it Beast or Beauty? I know one of them dies in the
One of them
first,
dies and one of them lives. But I couldn't tell you which one it is now either.
but yeah, they're poor old Wes Craven, man. The same year he made that fucking TV movie Chiller, he was down on his luck around this time. But yeah, that one of the German Shepherds has a flashback from the events of the first movie.
It's so cute. Just talking about it makes me die laughing, like, because I can see that.
Is it like most of the movie a flashback? Part 2?
Yeah, a lot of it is like, yeah, because I guess they needed like enough to make a real movie, like enough runtime. So there's a lot of flashbacks in that movie.
It's a very short movie too, isn't it? I mean, it's like 83 minutes or something like that. It's not very long. And this was Hills Have Eyes 2, the original Hills Have Eyes 2. Was that actually out in movie theaters, or was that like a direct to video type deal?
Oh God, I'll bet it was out like in theaters at that time because that was, you know.
Yeah, Wes Craven though, like I think if I'm not mistaken, right, they had filmed this before Nightmare on Elm Street was out. So this is when he was really kind of far in between, big hits. Like Hills Have Eyes would have been a pretty good one in like 77, and this was shot in like 84, something like that, right before Nightmare on Elm Street. So it was an odd time for Wes Craven for sure.
Do you remember the scene? Do you remember the scene though? Because it just, every time I think about the scene, it's fucking like, because like it's from the dog's like POV too, like looking up and shit. It has a flashback about like the other dog dying. Oh God.
And the dog is actually very intelligent because it's got dialogue and everything. I mean, the dog remembers everything. Remember what the people said and what they did and everything.
It's a very special dog. But yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about the Hills Have Eyes too. I remember it's not very good. And there's something involved, like, don't they have like mountain bikes or something like that in it? Aren't they going to like a?
I watched it not too long ago, but I swear to God, I couldn't tell you a thing about it now. I'm pretty sure there are bikes in, like motocross and stuff like that's in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else to really say about the Hills Have Eyes Part 2, other than it's kind of forgettable. It was right before Wes Craven hit it huge with Nightmare on Elm Street. And who's to say, hey, if Nightmare on Elm Street wasn't a hit, we may have never heard of Wes Craven ever again after a movie like Hills Have Eyes 2. Bulls. So, you guys want to continue on here? Number 18 on Uncle Bill's top 20. I'm just going to say these words and you'll know. Trick or treat, motherfucker!
Listen, man. Like, that's all you really have to say. What else is there to say? Like, I can envision that scene just from that, like, completely. I can see it in my head.
Oh, shit. I remember I've seen this movie twice, and I never really ever want to watch it again. I'm sure somebody will make us at one time watch it again. But this is like I think I've seen this. Well, it's this movie and Rob Zombie's Halloween. The least. I've watched those twice a piece. This movie is like just such. There's just so much going on in it that I don't understand. It was in 2000 and what year was it? 2002?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. So it was reality TV on the internet. It was streaming on the internet in 2002.
Yeah.
Who even had a high-speed internet in 2002?
Well, we sure as fuck didn't.
No.
Maybe when they ran in LA or whatever they did.
20 years ago. So if anybody in the chat, what would the technology have been to live stream anything on TV on the internet like a show on the internet. I don't think it would have been possible. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but that doesn't make any sense to begin with. Let alone Busta Rhymes was probably the most hated fucking guy in Halloween Resurrection. Wouldn't you think?
Well, that's the part that kills me about that movie is because the only reason scenes like that took place were because like he was a big celebrity at that time, and they were just like, oh, we've got to like use him. You know, he's got to be like a big focal point of the movie. So he gets to basically like pimp slap Michael Myers or whatever and get away with it, and that's one of those scenes too where watching it just brings everything to a halt because you're just like it's so cringe, like just the line and what he's doing. It's not as cringy now as watching that little shit Corey like beat the fuck out of him, but back then it was as cringy as it really got.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Jay if you've never seen any of the Halloween sequels, have
Well,
you?
I actually made a little video and posted that on the DeadPit.com site, or the DeadPit, fans, whatever. I have never seen any of the original series past. Well, 3 doesn't count; it's not part of that's one. I love 3, but past 2, I saw 2 one time in my life. The only thing I remember is him burning up at the end, Michael Myers. But even back then, and how old was I in 78 or 79 or something like that? I couldn't have been more than 12, 13 years old. I, even back then, said, I'm done with Halloween after 2. I'm done with it. I do not think, and I didn't then, and I don't now think that Michael Myers is an interesting franchise character, ongoing character. I think it should have ended with the first movie. John Carpenter thought it should have ended with the first movie. And I'm with John Carpenter. Now, he went on to, of course, he wrote part 2. He didn't want to do it, but, to make his next movie, they talked, and whatever. He didn't direct it. But I have been staunchly opposed to Halloween films, and I've never seen any of them except for the one in 2018. And was that when it came out, the 2018? And the only reason why I watched that is because they said that this would be a proper sequel to the original movie, that all the other films would be, forget about them. I said, well, okay, I'll give this a chance. And I thought it was okay, but yeah, I've never seen any of them.
I think that they've definitely now made more bad movies in that series than they have good movies, Jay. I'll say that.
Well, I just think, the original concept of the shape and what happened to him, and that you don't know what happened to him at the end of it, I think that's a great ending. And to me, that's where Halloween ends.
Yeah.
With that
Halloween's
original
never going to end.
No, Halloween never dies, Jay.
But I've never seen Halloween Kills. I haven't seen Halloween Ends, and I don't care to. And I know and even some people, you're not a proper horror fan if you haven't seen the Halloween films. Well, okay, I'll take that then. But yeah.
I mean,
Haven't
really,
seen it.
honestly, the best ones. I would recommend part 6, but aside from part 6, like after part 3, it kind of takes a big nosedive. I watched part 4 recently, the 4K version of part 4, and that was my introduction to the Halloween movies was part 4, like in the late 80s. And watching it now, man, like it doesn't have a mainstream feel to it. It feels like really more of a direct to video movie. I mean, it did play in theaters and everything, but it feels kind of cheap, I think. And I think part 5 felt the same way, maybe even a little bit cheaper.
Well, there's only a few movies that I consider just pretty much perfect. Jaws, Ghostbusters. There's a few others that I just think this is a perfect film. And the first Halloween I consider to be a perfect film for what it was trying to do. The kind of story it was telling and the kind of movie it was. pardon me, the kind of movie it was, and I just didn't care to take it any further. So,
Yeah.
You could probably say the same thing for Texas Chainsaw too. They
exactly.
could have just ended that and it would have been fine, really.
Well,
Like
yeah,
after the
because
first one.
really, and this is true too. When Texas Chainsaw Part Two first came out, the hardcores were kind of against that one too. You know, they were like,
Well,
they didn't need to make a
yeah.
sequel to that.
I really like part two. It's fun. It's silly. Dennis Hopper acting the fool, and it's but it's a comedy. It's a black comedy.
Yeah, it's a
Part two,
different sort of movie.
and it really is sort of almost a different film altogether. I don't even put it, in the
One of my favorite scenes
to the
in any horror film is in that movie though, where Dennis Hopper's like busts in there and they're all sitting around the table and everything. He goes, "Who the hell are you?" Or whatever. He goes, "I'm the Lord of the Harvest." He goes, "Is that one of them health food joints?"
She's my fave.
Next one up, though, Jay mentioned Jaws was one of his favorite movies. Did you like when the shark explodes, brother? Jaws
Man.
3.
Well, actually, it was Jaws 4. Where
Did the shark explode in Jaws 3?
yeah, but in Jaws 4, that's the one where the boat hits it and it fucking explodes on impact for no reason.
So you could include both, though, because the shark explodes underwater in Jaws 3.
That's true. I think the shark explodes in every one except the second one where it kind of like gets electrocuted.
Yeah,
And in part four, there's a quick clip of Roy Scheider saying, "Die, you son of a," and in part four, they have that clip of him, and then they have the shark exploding, whatever.
Well, in part 3, they used, like, I don't know how they did it, superimposed, like, fucking shark guts and shit that's supposed to be flying at you. Oh!
That looks so shitty, too. It was great. Like, the little pieces were, like, floating towards the screen. Oh.
I want to watch that in 3D. I have the Blu-ray 3D of it. Maybe at some point I'll take it up there to my in-laws and watch it on a projector and check it out.
Y'all are sons of bitches being able to see in 3D.
Let me tell you something though. Like I
I'm
watched there Friday the 13th 3D. We watched that one like a couple of years ago. That was kind of impressive. I was shocked. Like most of the time that 3D shit I don't even think works. But yeah, that one looked. I mean, it was kind of gimmicky, but it really worked. It looked like this shit was coming out toward you.
But in Jaws, at the end, everybody knows of Jaws: The Revenge. Two things happen that make that scene like just insanely fucking awful. Number one, the shark is getting hit by like this electric shock kind of thing, I guess, that like is bringing it up out of the water, and it's roaring like a damn Velociraptor or T-Rex or something. And then like it comes up and gets hit by the broken off bow of the ship or whatever. And upon impact, rather than just stabbing it,
boy, that's bad right there. Brian's been drinking a little bit too much tonight already.
I'm sure that he is probably thinking that. But yeah. Jaws 4.
Honestly, though, like the Jaws sequels, and people can get some sort of enjoyment out of them, I'm sure.
I love part 3. It's enjoyable in like a really like so bad that it's great way. And part 4 is to a degree. It's just some of that shit. It's a bit much.
But it's almost like, those movies were never really even made because they're never... everything's about that first movie. Nobody ever. I mean, I think Universal ignores it. I mean, they did release like a 3-pack of them not too long ago, but yeah, they don't really acknowledge those sequels at all, hardly.
I got that 3-pack.
Yeah, and we did a whole show about like all the Jaws sequels. If people haven't seen that, like, go back and watch those series of shows. But
what was that one called?
That It's called Monday Night Jaws.
Monday Night Jaws.
Yeah. So that's a great series though, and while you're at it, go back and check out Tuesdays with Fulci and Finding Argento. There's a whole bunch of them. I can't even remember all of them.
Rambo
now.
says that Jaws 3 is a fun cocaine movie.
It is.
I'm kind of surprised that they didn't remake Jaws or do any sequels or anything by now either. I mean, Universal they love making money on some of their properties. I mean, with the popularity of all these killer shark movies now, just using the name and release it direct to video. I mean, it makes sense. Why don't you think they've done that?
I don't know. That's a good question, man.
Anyway.
Well, one I'll bring up real quick, and I love the scene, so I don't know if you call it bad or not, but the effect is so cheap looking is when in Basket Case, Belial crawls out of the basket and it's that stop motion clay animation bit, and it's really shaky and grainy and it's, you can definitely tell it's clay animation, or it's a stop motion,
That's a damn classic, Jay. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I told you I love it. No, I love it. I mean, the whole film is one of my favorite films, period. It's Basket Case. But, I mean, as far as just the effect, it's so cheap looking. And but no, I love it. But
Well, and he grabs his brother by the balls towards the end of it. Isn't
That's
that what he
too.
does?
Yeah,
And that's just so goofy. But, yeah. I like all the Basket Case movies, actually.
I do too.
The sequels.
Yeah, they're awful, but like intentionally awful, I think.
The next one up, though, is a movie that we've championed for years and years and years. Way back before anybody really knew what this movie was, we stalked these fucking people, Uncle Bill, in the movie Troll 2. And I think we were some of the first people to ever interview the stars of this movie. And this one is, I still haven't shown this to Sarah. So this is a movie that I think everybody should experience at least once. And I want to document it when we watch it together for the first time, because she's along with anybody else that hasn't seen this, you're not going to believe that this was a real movie, but it was. And it was not meant to be funny at all.
That's the part I was getting to, yeah. So, like, this is the only movie where I think you might be able to argue on this list that they may be, like, some of it was supposed to be, like, humorous or whatever, but I just think it was really bad filmmaking. Like, I don't think it was anything else.
well, yeah, and there's a great documentary. I think it's called Best Bad Movie or Best Bad Film. What's the name of the documentary for that about Troll 2? But it's really
Best
good.
worst movie.
Best worst movie. Yeah. That's great. And what is the line? You can't piss on hospitality. Is that
I
the
won't
line?
allow it.
I won't allow it.
There's a ton of great lines in that movie that just are awful, but the one that I think everybody goes back to is just the, oh my god, with the big close up zoom shit. There
doesn't he say something too? Like this poor guy's been he's been transformed into like a potted plant, right?
Right.
And he's just like, it was made by Italian people. There's probably some sort of language gap there with whatever was going on. And he was just barely looking off camera and he was like, oh, what are you doing? What's going on here? Or something like that, he says. And then like the goblins, there's like, they use probably like gallons and gallons of green food color. And it's like they're turning these people into green, like slime or something. I don't know. And they're starting to eat it. And I don't know if it's one of his buddies or who it was in the scene, but yeah, he lets out the weirdest, oh my God.
I think he says too something like, they're eating him and now they're going to eat me. Something like that.
And the dance the sister does in front of the mirror.
Oh man!
Oh my goodness gracious!
That is just there's so many great scenes and lines in that movie. Like it's a classic. As far as this one though, too, Garrett saying this. How about the scenes? Just hang around, Garrett. Just hang around. You never know what's going to show up.
Yeah, I think we're going to be talking about Rob Zombie movie at least once or twice in this list. But yeah, can't go wrong with Troll 2. There's so much. Something interesting that I had heard not too long ago. Do you remember the goofy fucking movie that they're watching on the bus, like with a monkey, and like the monkey gets shot up on a rocket or something like that they're watching on? And we always talked about that when we were watching. I was like, what in the fuck did they make here? This is like the dumbest shit ever. It's the movie within the movie.
With the movie within, yeah.
Yeah. That was a real freaking movie.
What the hell was the movie then?
I think the Angry Video Game Nerd did a video or something on it. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's some sort of foreign movie or something that is terrible, like a caveman movie or something.
It's got to be. Isn't it an Italian movie?
I don't know if it's Italian. It's some kind of foreign movie. I'm thinking it was called like Grunt or something like that. Was the name of it?
It's a great name for a movie. Grunt.
It, like as bad as that looked, that was a real freaking movie, evidently. Anyway, continuing on. Troll 2, everybody loves Troll 2. Number 15 is a movie that I think we did like a review on this not too long ago on Patreon. Probably one of the worst sequels ever made. I don't know if anybody would. I mean, it's definitely top 4 or 5 worst sequels, easily. We're talking about The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. And I guess Uncle Bill's just talking about James Earl Jones' wardrobe in this movie.
I think I just put on the thing, I just put James Earl Jones Locust or something like that.
Yeah. Giant Locust King, James Earl Jones.
In a movie where pretty much everything is just, one thing tops the other thing in terms of being just awful, that scene just sealed it for me. I'm like, there's no backing out of that scene. There's no getting away from it now.
Well, and the I am Pazuzu and
When they had the because Linda Blair was in it, but she did not agree to. They did flashback scenes from the first movie. She did not agree to, be the possessed Reagan. So they got like a lookalike or something, and that was some of the goofiest looking shit ever too. But man, you talk about that has got to be one of the most boring fucking movies from beginning to end of anything I can recall. It's fucking like, isn't it like 2.5 hours long? It's crazy long.
Yeah, and a lot of it too are scenes like that where it's like weird dream imagery kind of stuff that like some of the characters are having, and that's like one of the scenes where he's a doctor in the film, if I'm not mistaken. But in that particular scene, that there's having some sort of vision where he's like the Locust King or whatever, and he's in some fucking grasshopper outfit.
Wouldn't that be he almost looks like a live action He-Man character or something. That would have been a killer He-Man figure. Locust Man. Robert Rain super chat here. Thank you, sir. The creepy pedo guys from the Sleepaway Camp are the worst. There's a lot of stuff in Sleepaway Camp they couldn't get away with now. That's one of them.
Yeah, they'll never ever try to make anything related to Sleepaway Camp anymore, I'm sure.
Have you seen The Exorcist 2 recently, Jay, or has it been a while? I'm never watching it again, personally.
it has probably been a good 10 years since I have seen Exorcist 2. Yeah, that's one that I've actively avoided. And it's remember, at the beginning was this guy has got like he's running through the locust, and he's like singing this thing to keep the locust off of him. And Linda Blair being hypnotized by this glowing, some kind
The
of
strobe light.
device, strobe light, and like CK said, it's just dull as dirt. Most of that movie is just so
man.
long,
Some
and
of the
drawn out, and
I was just going to say some of the worst acting by like people who are amazing actors ever like put on a film. Like Louise Fletcher in that movie just looks like she has no idea what she's doing. She's just walking from point A to point B, reading stuff off of wherever she's at or something. Like it's just
who's the director on that one?
oh god, it was a fairly well known guy too.
I mean, was it the guy that directed like Deliverance or something? I mean, it's like a really famous,
Shit, yeah.
talented director.
John. God damn it! What was his name?
Is it Moreland? No, that's the guy that's like
Somebody in the chat. It's John.
somebody
something.
knows.
Yeah, I know. William Friedkin.
John Borman.
Borman, maybe.
Maybe that.
John
was it.
Borman.
Somebody look it up and find out.
John Borman. Okay.
There's another. Yeah, John Borman. There we go. Thank you, Scratch Bueno. And Rambo Raff, both of you put it in there. But I think it was the scene where Dana Plato from Different Strokes is a real young girl's in this too. And she doesn't speak or whatever. And then she meets up with Reagan at the therapist's office and immediately starts talking to her. And then like the line that Reagan says, I'll never forget because it's just so bad. Like, for one thing, it's a bad line, but the way that she delivers it is fucking hilarious. I mean, I can't do it justice, but she just simply says, "I was possessed by a demon."
Yeah, I mean, I've just looked it up. It's a guy that directed Deliverance, which is like one of the best movies ever, and directed this. John Borman.
John Borman, there we go. Deliverance, great. Excellent. Wonderful film, but yeah, there's not so much. And here's one that's right up there, man. I mean, it's possibly, well, I don't, it's not as long as Exorcist 2, but it's just as much as a sacrilege was the 30th anniversary version of Night of the Living Dead. Uncle Bill, you've got that at number 14.
And I've never seen it. I've seen clips of it where they filmed some, what he was just out for money, basically.
Listen,
I've never seen that.
It's as bad as you can imagine anything would like. So it's just this is the part that kills me. They actually take some scenes out of Night of the Living Dead so that they can put in these new scenes that are god awful and look like they were filmed by like Trauma or somebody like that. Like that's the quality level that it looks like. So they've got that. Any of those scenes are just like to me some of the worst scenes in like horror movie history, because they've got them interspliced with a classic movie like Night of the Living Dead, and it just it's insane to me that anybody would let them do that, or that I guess it's public domain, they could do that, but I mean it's insane that anybody didn't tell them, hey, that's not a good idea. Like that looks awful, and like you're gonna piss like a lot of people off by doing that.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing it was John Russo's idea. I don't think George Romero had anything to do with it. Now, the big thing with Night of the Living Dead is they didn't properly copyright it, so they were looking at ways. If you alter something and add something new to it, you can copyright it. That was the whole thing. That was the whole idea, is to make money with it. And I think it's great that it got one DVD release in 1998, and nobody knows it exists now, which is the way it should stay.
Yeah, we watched that not too long ago, and it was one of the worst things I could ever imagine. Like it, Jay, you should just search it out just to watch it.
Didn't they get the guy that plays the original zombie? What's that actor's name? I met him at that first Frightmare. Wasn't he in that?
Bill
Did they get
Heinzman,
him?
yeah.
Bill Heisman, isn't he in that? One of the
Yeah.
refilmed scenes.
He was the only. I think he was the only one to reprise the role, and he looks like somebody's fucking papaw.
Well, you can imagine how
Yeah.
much older he must have been when they filmed that stuff.
Like it gives a little bit of a backstory on his character. Like who cares?
And yeah, Debbie Rochon was in that, and I think wasn't that Trent Haga? Like there was a couple people like that were popular for about 5 seconds in the early 2000s, and they're all in that movie for some reason.
Jamie Forsyth, are you blind, buddy? I don't want to be rude, but fuck, he looked like somebody's papaw. He didn't have any teeth.
How'd he look? He's like,
Bombastic Reviews, X-Ray Punch. I think there's some new names. Brian Goes Blue. What's going on, fellas?
somebody said there's nothing wrong with trauma. Yeah, but it would be like if you took The Godfather, but you put like in the beginning of it, you put like Samurai Cop as the lead in, and then like you just played some of Samurai Cop, and then like played the regular Godfather, and then went back to other scenes of that and cut in between the two films. It just doesn't work.
Now, this next one, I want to be honest with you. I have seen this movie, but I've seen it once. And Uwe Boll's House of the Dead from like what year was that? 99, 2000, something like that. And you had Ellie Cornell's character. She was in the first. She was in two of them, I think.
Yeah, she was. I think she was in both of them. I think it's either the first or the second one. Only thing I can remember for certain is that I was just amazed at how she like completely forgot how to act. Like it was as if all of the acting knowledge that she knew had been sucked out of her head during the process of that movie.
Well, I think it was the second one. She lost her legs in it or something, and she was still like supposed to be like a action type character with guns and shit. And she's in a fucking wheelchair.
Man,
Oh,
I need to go back and watch that again too here because like it's truly one of the worst performances like that from somebody that used to, and she was fairly good in part 4, by the way. And then you watch her in this and you're like, holy shit. Like it's on par with that what we were just talking about, those scenes from the Night of the Living Dead Catastrophe Edition.
it was Uwe Boll though. Was one of those directors that for a long time there, I was like, why is he allowed to still make movies? Like, what the hell's going on? Because he was like getting a lot of these movies had pretty good sized budgets, like the first House of the Dead and then Alone in the Dark. Both of those were in the movie theaters. Oddly enough,
You remember that though, Jay, when he was like real popular and then they were giving him millions of dollars?
There was something I saw and I don't remember the name of the movie. I think I was reviewing the DVD. I don't know if it's for you guys. I used to do something for you remember Creature Corner, and I used to do the DVD reviews for them too, and it was. I just remember the beginning of the movie. It's Uwe Boll, and it's this woman. She's sitting in a chair, and this guy's beating her around on the face, and it's like her face is decimated, and and he's just beating her over and over in the face with a hammer or something. But the movie, I think, begins with scenes of animals being tortured, and it was.
I remember this.
Oh my God. And it's real footage of real animals being stabbed and and it looked real. It looked like it was real.
Was that fuck.
But
So
it was just
he did Postal. He did a movie called Postal that I know like had some crazy shit in it. But there was another one too that he did.
But I just remember the very beginning of it is these animals, dogs, and I think there might have been, a cat or, but a lot of dogs just being tortured and just being brutally beaten and and it's just, it's god awful. I was really offended. I mean, really watching this, seeing those scenes at the very beginning. And I said that scene where this woman is being hit on the face and with a hammer or something. And it's a bad sort of CG effect, where your nose
Rambo says
breaks.
that's a movie called Seed.
Seed.
Mm.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's the only Uwe Boll movie I've ever seen. Is that one?
Well, it's
God,
showing that
you're
he's
lucky,
still,
Joe.
he's still producing some movies. Not many. I mean, he did one in 2020, another in this year. Well, there's a couple this year. But as far as directing goes, let's see. The last film that he directed was... No, he's still making movies. He made The Profane Exhibit in 2022. And he's just not doing as many. He's doing Rampage, President Down.
Yeah, I remember Rampage.
The Rampage movies. In the Name of the King, Part 7. Blubberella. The Blood Rain movies. So, I mean, he's still kind of doing movies every once in a while. But yeah, his movies are not very good.
That's an understatement.
Continuing on here. Number 12, you've got The Monkey Razor in Phenomena.
Okay, now hear me out on this, because this is controversial because a lot of people love this movie. First of all, there's too much shit going on in that movie. There's too many parts moving at one time and too many stories at one time. But the scene that completely takes me out of that is out of nowhere, and literally out of nowhere in that movie, there's a pet monkey that Donald Pleasant's character had around with him that just goes fucking crazy. And I don't know if he's trying to get revenge for Donald Pleasant's getting murdered in the film, or if he's just a serial killer monkey, but just starts cutting this up with a razor, a straight razor.
Don't they play Iron Maiden during that scene or something too?
I think so. Yeah, there's a bunch of different metal songs that are completely in wrong places throughout that movie. Flash of the Blade is the one you're thinking of too.
The movie, I love the movie, but there's a certain point in the movie where it just kind of takes a nosedive, and I think it's right around there. And Dario Argento films, a lot of them are like that too. I mean, he's got some great ones, the beginning to end, but he's got a few that he just didn't know how to end the movie, and it just kind of falls apart. I think that Phenomena is one of those.
Yeah, he threw way too many ideas into one movie in that. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of people are getting on my ass about this. It's a controversial choice, but to me, to throw a fucking straight razor wielding orangutan into a movie, it's just a little bit off-putting. I don't know.
We were evidently in the Uwe Boll documentary briefly. I didn't know anything about that.
I didn't either.
We don't have an IMDb credit on it. Fuckers.
He probably just is talking him talking shit about us, I'm sure. Bunch of dumbass critics.
The next movie, though, we're going to talk about is one that I just watched. I watched this on Halloween night. Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
You know this scene, then.
I marked the hell out when I was a kid. Now, this was one of the very early movies that I got to see in theaters at the young age of 8 years old. And this movie is goofy as fuck anyway. It really is. I mean, it's meant to be stupid and funny, really. But yeah, I mean, there's just out of nowhere towards the end of the movie, there's a zombie that's dressed it has the red studded coat like Michael Jackson wore in the Thriller era, the Thriller tour and stuff like that. And he just does his little dance and twists around, and then that's it. But it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of nod to the fans back in the day, because they don't ever really reference it or anything. It's just kind of thrown in there.
Here's the thing with that one to me too is that I think that one maybe was purposely meant to be funny. But up to that point, the movie hadn't really done anything just breaking the fourth wall, insanely kind of shitty, funny, like that. And then that scene comes along, and you're just like that. It just completely goes into like camp. Like that movie had no idea what it wanted to do. Did it want to be camp? Did it want to be serious? Like it was trying to be Return of the Living Dead, the original, straddling that line, and it just none of it worked for me anyway. Like I like it for nostalgia purposes, but looking at it as an actual movie, it's not. It's not a good movie. The makeup effects are awful in it. The story is awful.
Well, it's pretty much just a remake of the original story. It's pretty
Right.
much the same story. I mean, it's
Well,
it's
it even has the same.
characters, you know,
Yeah, it has the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the same characters, same actors.
but same actors.
And then they have like a with Tom Matthews. It's like, oh, it seems like I've been here before.
And what is it? What is the line? It's like a zombie. It's like stabbed in the head or something. Get that knife out of my head. Or what's the line that she's did? That
Somebody put it on here, Jay. It's get that damn screwdriver.
Get that screwdriver out of my head or something.
It's a goofy fucking voice. You're like, get that screwdriver
That-
out of
that
my
voice.
hand.
That voice. Yeah.
So yeah, you can't. I love Return of the Living Dead too. I mean, it's not a good movie though. It really isn't. But I have fond memories of it. A movie like that, I don't think could be made today. Unfortunately, just a goofy zombie comedy.
One thing that pissed me off about that movie though was how shitty the Tar Man looked in it. As opposed, like you're talking about a movie that's how much older than the original.
It's like 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
It's like they should have been able to recreate that look and make it even better. But in the second one, it just looks awful. Like
Ken Wiederhorn, though, funny thing, the director of that movie also directed one of our favorite movies of all time,
he did.
King Frat.
Yeah.
Ain't that fucking weird? Same fucking guy.
I mean, I'd rather watch King Frat personally.
King Frat, King Frat. I want that on Ryan. We'll talk to you, buddy, at Scare Flare Records about getting the King Frat soundtrack out because we need that on vinyl.
Jay, have you seen Return of the Living Dead 2?
Yeah, I mean, it's
okay.
like I say. I mean, I referenced that that scene with the zombie head.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, and now you guys make me want to revisit it. I think I've got it on DVD somewhere. I have to dig it out. But yeah, as I remember, it was just more or less a remake of the original. It had the same story beats, it's the same actors, a lot of the same actors playing, like say, different parts. But now you make me want to see it again because it's been so long since I've seen it. And I watched, I think it was on YouTube, there was a pretty good documentary about Return of the Living Dead 2. I don't know if it was something that was put on a DVD release or what, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think Felcher did Scream Factory did a special edition of that, and there's a making of.
That might have been what I saw. Yeah.
Rambo says, for those wondering about the Raging Bull documentary, it's on YouTube, and Dead Pit is around the 46-minute and 20-second spot with. It was the thing from our documentary where we have the wrestling belts and we're challenging him to a match, and then it cuts to Ubi's face being sad.
I remember that just because I could not stop fucking dying laughing about that. The
We were in a post office.
The shit you were saying in that was some of the best. I have to go back and watch it now, but it was like some of the best stuff ever.
Continuing on. Number 10, and this is a film that I haven't seen. I've seen it once. American Werewolf in Paris. The werewolf transformation sequence, which pales in comparison to the original movie in many ways, right?
Okay, so what year did that come? I'm thinking that came out in like either the late 90s or early 2000s. I don't know for sure. Somebody composed it.
96 or 97, I'm thinking. Yeah, it was in the late 90s.
All right. Well, for some reason, they decided that because the American Werewolf in London had like the best transformation scene of all time, But they decided in American Werewolf in
Yeah.
Paris, CG. It's all, and it's some of the
We'll save
goddamn
all kinds of money, boys.
worst CG that you will ever see in your life. If you go back and
And
watch it.
that's something I don't understand about bad CG, because if you look at Jurassic Park, which pretty much broke the ground for CGI effects, it still looks great. I mean, it still looks fantastic. The original Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so many CG films after that just looks shitty as hell, like American Werewolf, in Paris. And what I don't understand, because they were so good in the original Jurassic Park, and that's probably the first full CGI movie that uses full creatures and such, and it still looks really good. So what happened? How come it got shitty after it started out really good?
Who the fuck directed that? It wasn't Steven Spielberg. They didn't have Steven Spielberg. Is the big thing. But
Well, I
yeah,
mean, that's just one example. There's so many films
yeah.
that use CGI
Forrest
and
Gump,
just
the
looks
CG in Forrest
terrible.
Gump still looks good.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's true.
there's some
But
films.
they spent so much time and and they actually, in my opinion, the only movies in the late '90s, early 2000s that have CG in them that look good are when they were used in combination with like practical effects somehow or another. Like, or they somehow or another like had some model to where it wasn't all CG. Because when they tried to do like all CG, almost universally, like it looked horrible, except for like you said, Jurassic Park for some reason. Like I'm not sure, like what the deal was with that. Just money, I
Well,
guess. You got
they
like
had
tons
bigger
of money to
budgets
throw at
to
it.
deal with. Yeah, they had a MacBook Pro, and the American Werewolf guys had like an Alienware laptop, basically.
But you know how like in London, in Werewolf in London, it looks like painful and realistic when he goes through the transform. In the one in Paris, it's just like within like that, like he transforms into this fucking like, there's nothing to it, and it just looks 1,000 times worse than you can possibly imagine. It's just.
You know, the
just a
funny
bad
thing
scene.
is, American Werewolf in Paris, I think in Germany, has a 4K release. Could you imagine that shit in 4K?
I can't figure that out why they picked that movie like to put in 4K.
Oh, I wouldn't mind going back and revisiting it though. If it was if I had the 4K, I would go back and watch it just to see. I'm curious, like how bad it would look. Number 9, and this may surprise some people about what I think about this movie because I went back and rewatched it not too long ago. Texas Chainsaw 3D. There's a line in this that a lot of people like. I don't know if they popped for it or just at how dumb really it is, because that's kind of what I did. Like I was like, what the fuck?
That's
So Texas Chainsaw 3D, the movie where they turn Leatherface into a baby face
they
Leatherface.
do. He has a babyface turn, yeah.
Yeah. So they're playing the wrestling game here. And man, this is going to shock some people, but I honestly think this is one of Texas Chainsaw 3D is one of the better Texas Chainsaw sequels overall.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
that's the thing about this movie that really like what makes that scene stand out is because I was really into the movie. It doesn't make a lick of sense. The timeline in it doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. But like, I actually kind of liked the movie up until that point, and that's one of those scenes where it just screeches everything to a halt. And I was just watching it, and I just remember being like, "Oh God, that's like such a bad." Like hokey, corny line, like delivered in that way, like "Do your thing, cuz." It's like, no.
And Leatherface turns into a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the issues with that movie for sure. Like the timeline makes zero sense, but for what it was, I mean, most of these Texas Chainsaw movies nowadays are fucking dog shit anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think this one was probably the one that I kind of got into more than any of the other ones since like at least part 3.
Yeah. I don't mind the movie as a whole. It's just like I said, this is about scenes, and that one particular scene just always drove me nuts. And I know it drove a lot of other people fucking nuts. Do you think, cuz?
Planet CHH. What's going on, man? So next one up, and man, we lost listeners back in the day for shitting on this movie. People got pissed off, but god damn it, I'm going to tell the truth. And I think Uncle Bill, I don't care how loyal we are to a filmmaker. If he makes a piece of shit, we're going to say it's a piece of shit, in our opinion.
Yep.
And we're talking about George A. Romero's Survival of the Dead. What particular thing in Survival of the Dead?
The fucking horse. You know that's got to be the thing. I remember watching that and just being like, this is it. Like, this is the end of his, like, career. Like, maybe not in the sense of, like, not knowing, you know, this is going to be the end of his, like, ability to make movies, but just, like, you know, you can't really come back from certain things. Like, before you had a little bit of hope that he was going to continue on to make better movies. And when I saw that, I was like, he's not doing it. He's not going to come back.
Yeah. I mean, Survival of the Dead is I think it may be his worst movie. It looks like a commercial. I mean, it looks so cheap and generic. The CGI horse, the CGI throughout the whole movie is terrible. And back in the day, I said the same thing. I thought Diary of the Dead was a horrible movie too, but at least you could kind of see what he was going for with Diary of the Dead. The concept was not that bad, but it was just the execution. Everything in Survival of the Dead was bad. There was I don't see what he was going for other than, hey, they're going to let me make another movie. Here we go. Let's hire some people and make something that, you know, what was it? It was like a family feud going on in that movie or something too.
Yeah, it was some weird like Hatfield and McCoy kind of like thing, but with Irish and Scottish people, I think, or Scottish people. Or I've watched that movie one time, I think. I don't think I've watched it.
That's me, and I remember the concept being kind of unique, sort of crossing the zombie genre with like a western, you know. And I thought, well, but like you say, execution, yeah. And I thought the same thing. It's just like, well, this is pretty much it for poor George. After that movie, you know.
Yeah, it's just that bad, Jay. Like it's so bad that when I was watching it, you just feel a man's career dying. Like when you're watching that movie. Oh.
Yeah, and this was a good 7 years, I think, before Romero passed away. Well, 6 or 7 years, I can't remember, but and still to this day, you can go on Amazon or Deep Discount or wherever and pick that Blu-ray up for like $4. Like, I mean, they would, if they lowered it anymore, you know, they'd be paying you to take it.
So for anybody on here that doesn't know, though, the scene that I'm talking about is the zombie fucking horse scene.
Zombie horse, yeah.
And if you need any more explanation than that, there's a bunch of different reasons. Like that movie had no budget, which doesn't lend itself well to like CGI, which is all throughout that movie, including the zombie horse. The idea of a zombie horse is fucking stupid. The idea of like somebody riding a zombie horse is even dumber. But that fucking happens too. So,
well, there was actually back in the day, the Tombs of the Blind Dead had zombie horses, but they were actually kind of cool looking. I mean, it kind of the way they filmed it. I think they had the horses in these custom made sheets that had like skeletons drawn on them. I mean, very crudely done, but it actually worked a lot better. An honorable mention on here, though, and people were, you know, the mayor said that he couldn't even buy Survival of the Dead for $1 at Dollar Tree. I don't blame you. I don't think I would buy it either. I have it for some reason, but maybe that's one that I'll just give to somebody or something. Continuing on, though, honorable mention, somebody mentioned on here, and it's perfect for this list. and I don't see it on the list, is I'm just going to say it: pancakes.
Now, I like that movie. I personally like that movie. I saw it in the theater. I've laughed my head off at several scenes in that movie, particularly that. And I still like that film. I know you guys hate him, and Eli
I,
Roth. I know you hate him, but I
I
really have fun with that movie. I think it's so sort of over the top, weird, and it's anyway. Just everything. I just think it's a fun movie.
You know what's funny though, Jay,
I'll
is like
defend that movie.
I actually think that might be the only film that he ever did where I think that there are some competent scenes in it. Like,
that's what I was going to say. I think that may be his best movie, actually.
Well,
I mean,
and
I'm
I
not a
think there's
fan,
some
but
scenes that's like so bad it's good to me. Um,
and
and the very last line, and of course I'm not going to say the N word, but where you hear that guy, the guy at the country store, he's talking about, oh, that's for the N guys, and then at the very end, he goes, here's my, and oh man, I just scream with laughter because just you didn't see that coming. And yeah, and the pancake thing is so bizarre and so out of left field. And um, anyway, yeah, I have fun with that movie.
I'm guessing, I don't know this for certain, but it seems like that was something that he took off of a movie like Pieces or something like that. Because there's a scene in Pieces where it just comes out of nowhere, like this whole kung fu sequence and shit, and then like that scene is just apropos of nothing else going on in the movie. Like,
And the line, pancakes. I mean, what
the thing I remember though when we saw this in theaters, so Rolling Stone magazine had a huge article on this, and this was back when I subscribed to Rolling Stone magazine. That's how long ago this fucking was.
it had to be a
20
minute.
years ago, man. This movie is almost 20 years old. And he was getting the awfulest hype ever was. And the movie, reading the plot of the movie, we were excited. We're like, oh man, this sounds so cool. And then, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of stuff in this movie that really doesn't fit. It doesn't really know what it is. But it's one that I've actually been contemplating rewatching because it's been many years since I've seen it. And thinking back about it, I think it may be, his best movie. And then they used a lot of David Hess's music from Last House on the Left in the soundtrack as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, there was some things in that movie that are actually good. And when I watch like Hostel or Green Inferno, I don't see any of that. Like I just see a bunch of trash. That's all I see.
Moving on, number 7. And this is a scene that has not aged well. I know what one you're talking about, Uncle Bill. From Freddy versus Jason from the year 2003. I think it was 2003. Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child, who I cannot believe, and this is when Destiny's Child was still around, right? Weren't they still a group?
They might have been at that time.
I think the line was, "I'm not scared of a expletive, homosexual slur." We'll say that. Yeah.
Basically, though,
In a Christmas sweater,
that whole scene, man. Like I went back and watched it just to make sure that it was as bad as I remember, and it's worse than I remember. Like it's her trying to insult Freddie, and number one, she can't act, but number two, like the dialogue is some of the worst shit. She's like, "What's that shit? You got butter knives for fingers? What are you trying to compensate for, Freddie?" And it's like just a whole bunch of bad, like shit like that. Oh God!
And then the Venom Brew Studios mentions the "got your nose" thing, where it's like a CG, like they cut her nose off in CG or something. I remember it looks really bad.
Yeah, it does.
But I was surprised, like some of the stuff that she would agree to say, being in a pop band that were really, really famous at the time.
Well, that just shows you how different things were, 20
Yeah, I mean,
years ago.
even then though, that's kind of surprising. Um, but yeah, that's definitely a good one. Have you got any memories about that movie, Jay?
Vaguely, that's another one that's been a long time. There's several of these I need to revisit. That's one of them. But yeah, it's been so long, so I vaguely remember that. Um,
Anybody right now that's watching this show, if you want to, go on YouTube and just type in like Kelly Rowland, Freddy versus Jason, or Kelly Rowland, Freddy, and just watch it. It's only about 2 minutes long, but you'll just be sitting there like, oh God, like this is fucking brutal
Yeah.
to try to watch.
Well, now she's acting in Hallmark Christmas movies and shit. That's pretty much all she does. She didn't have a singing career or anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So that appearance in Freddy vs. Jason kick-started her Lifetime original movie career, or Hallmark movies, or whatever. Number 6, and we've talked about this movie a few times, but it is like it's so laughably shitty. The Happening, M. Night Shyamalan, from what was 2008, I think, is when this was.
Yeah.
well, there's some of these choices where like pretty much the whole movie is like one bad scene, and that's one of them. It's like, um, you know, and he's kind of made a comeback, Shyamalan, lately. The last few films have been a little bit. He's a little bit on the upswing, but yeah, he had this horrible period where it's just like, one was worse than the other. Uh,
You're right though. Here lately, I mean, it hasn't been like as bad like some of the movies. I didn't like Old that much, but I mean, especially the ending of it. It has some really horrible acting.
I haven't
But
seen that yet. I like Glass. I like, what was it, Split?
I
Yeah.
liked Glass a lot, actually. I was kind of surprised.
And what was the one about the what is it? The kids are staying with the grandparents.
Oh,
and
The Visit.
The
Yeah.
Visit. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked all the
But
I liked
yeah.
Split and The Visit, and I liked all those pretty well too. But this one, like the part that gets me about this is Marky Mark and what's her name? I always get her confused with the other chick too. The one that looks just like Katy Perry, Zoe Deschanel.
Zoe, yeah.
Okay, they both look like they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like the acting wise, they have no idea like where they're at.
He looked
like
so
what they're-
confused.
Yes, but there's a scene in it in particular. There's a million scenes in it that are horrible, where they're in two different groups, and this other group is like walking around and like looking for a house or something, and they're walking in the opposite direction, and they hear gunshots and like these people screaming and stuff, and Marky Mark realizes that like they're committing suicide, and he just goes, "Oh no!" Just like that, he goes, "Oh no!" And then he goes, "The toxins."
He's a scientist or something in this movie, and he's like a biologist.
Yeah, he's supposed to be. He's like, and there's a scene in it too where he's like, "Come on, guys, take an interest in science," or something like that. Like, let's get, he's like, they're all leaving the classroom. He's like, "Come on, guys, take an interest in science." It's like, dude, you're not a fucking science teacher. You can barely speak English. Like,
Basically, though, like the whole thing in the Happening is the villain in the Happening is wind.
yes,
Like that's just totally something that somebody would do that enjoys the smell of their own farts or something. Like that's something they come up with. Like, we got it. In this one, it's going to be some sort of toxins within the air. It's going to cause people to kill themselves and shit.
yeah, because there's nothing more frightening than the fucking wind. Oh God.
It'll be like the fog, but you can't see it. It's just,
Get inside, boys. There's a strong breeze.
I feel it, boys. It's coming
Going
for
for
me.
us. Oh,
Yeah. Talk about, you deep dives and then, doing a little better, because I love Unbreakable. I think that, To me, I think Unbreakable is like his best movie. It's my favorite of his films. And I love
It's a
Unbreakable.
great film.
Um,
Yeah.
and then to make such a nosedive, and
Yeah, that and the Unbreakable is his. I think it's his best movie.
it's my favorite.
Yeah,
Um,
and I
you
mean
know,
maybe I think with Glass, and I know
and Signs is really good. I like
Stuntman.
Signs.
I know a few people didn't like Glass. They thought it was terrible. I think they may have like. With me, M. Night Shyamalan had made so many fucking horrible movies. Like my expectations were nowhere near the level of Unbreakable because I know he's probably never going to make another movie that good. I mean, that's just a fact. So
Yeah.
I didn't have that high of expectations with it. I mean, I thought it was okay for what it was. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
like
the Mackle, what's his name? James Mackle.
James McAvoy or
McAvoy.
something.
Yeah. That
McAvoy.
fucking dude is killer. Like he should have won some award for that damn what was the movie called? I can't even
Doing all
remember
these
now.
multiple characters.
Yeah.
You talking about Split?
Split.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That fucking guy should have won something for that role. Like that, I'm not kidding. Like an Oscar or something. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
good it was.
Yeah, it really was. Really good.
At least a People's Choice Award. Now, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. James McAvoy, boss. I'm from Eastern
McAvoy,
Kentucky. I don't
yeah.
have to fucking pronounce this shit.
But
All
the
right,
wind, the wind is not scary, by the way. So it's just
something else that's not scary in Creep Show 3, number 5, The Haunted Dog. Uncle Bill, we watched this movie again not too long ago. Have you ever seen Creep Show 3?
I've never seen it. I watched you guys reviewing it.
It's
And,
on YouTube. I think it's last time I looked, it's up on YouTube. If you
Yeah.
want to really
Never
torture
seen it.
yourself,
I really shouldn't have put that one on the list just because that whole movie is not really a movie as much as it is just like an exercise in trying to weed out anybody from watching a film. But in particular, like throughout that movie, I was just sitting there like, I can't believe that they made this. But there's one sequence in there where it was like so, and I think they were trying to be serious in a way. Like they thought it would be scary, but it's so goddamn ridiculous. And that's like the zombie hot dog sequence. And anybody that's ever seen Creepshow 3 will know the sequence that I'm talking about.
listen to how fucking stupid this is, though. Isn't this guy buy a homeless man a hot dog? Isn't
Yes.
that how it starts?
Yes.
And the homeless man chokes on the fucking hot dog.
Yes.
And the guy has visions of the homeless man. What is he offer him a bite of the hot dog or something? You want to buy him a
Yes.
hot dog? So it's essentially like a very, very
Shitty version of Creepshow 2. Yeah.
shitty hitchhiker episode in Creepshow 2. That whole movie, man, like, okay, if Vinegar Syndrome was to get that and devote a 2-hour documentary on the making of that movie and what the fuck happened there, I'd buy it. Because I
would
really
too.
want to know. I want to know, how did this thing come about? You've got the Creepshow franchise and you made that. Like, that's one of the most confusing things probably in the history of our show about movies, like how it happened. Have no idea. I mean, it's that bad.
What it looks like is they got like 20 monkeys together in a room and put like cards out with plot ideas, and the monkeys just picked like different ones and they put a movie together. It really is unfathomable like how stupid that movie is.
I have to add that to the list. So you say it's on YouTube.
It is on.
Creepshow
Well,
3.
last time I looked, it was on YouTube.
You gotta watch it, Jay. It's like it's unbelievable that they could get a budget and people woke up and got dressed and like acted in this movie, like that it just existed is amazing.
Well, if I could interject one, and this is one that it's an ending, and I don't know if it falls into this category or not. I guess it was intended to be good, but it is probably what I consider the worst ending of any movie in history. And the movie itself is only okay, But that they decided to end the movie this way just really upset me so much. This over the years, I've considered making a post and going on a rant, kind of similar to Uncle Bill's earlier, last month. The ending of The Mist, the way
Oh,
they
wow.
end that film. Now, real quick, it's a Stephen King. It's Frank Darabont. He did Shawshank Redemption, did Green Mile, two of my favorite films. Another Stephen King movie. It's not in a prison this time, but it's this sleepy New England town, which most Stephen King movies are in a sleepy New England town. And there's a mist that comes over the harbor. And more or less, you find out that this mist is a doorway to another dimension. And these creatures come through the mist, and it's like giant bugs and slugs and tentacled creatures and stuff that kill people. And this father and young son hole up in this grocery store. There's like this religious fanatic lady that's one of, I think I really love her performance in that movie, that is says, well, we need to have a sacrifice. It's God, is descending his wrath upon us. We've got to have a sacrifice. Wants to sacrifice this kid, this son. So anyway, it ends with this father and his young son and a few other people are in a car and they're driving through the mist to try to escape. And I think the car runs out of gas, I believe. They stop and basically make a suicide pact that they think, well, we're fucked. The mist is taken over and we won't survive this. So they make a suicide pact. So the father kills everybody in the car and ends by shooting his son, his little boy, in the head and kills his son. Then, like 2 minutes later, the mist dissipates and clears up. And the father's going, oh no. And you see the military vehicle show up and the mist is cleared, right after he kills his son. Now, what are we supposed to take from that ending? That, well, life's a bitch, credits. That pissed me off so much because I as a hobby make my little movies and such, and I always think of how am I going to end this? Is the ending earned? And that is not an earned ending. It is just tacked on for shock value. It's not in the book. The book doesn't end that way. Even Stephen King liked that ending. I think it's just terrible, reprehensible. It's the worst ending of any movie I've ever seen because basically it takes this character that you're supposed to care about through the movie and his young boy and all the hell that they go through, and it ends with him sacrificing his son, and then the mist clears, and he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to kill his son, and he's screaming to the heavens, no, 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 and that's the end of the movie. And that is just, what's the thought process behind ending a movie that way, where you take this character you're supposed to care about and end it where this horrible joke of fate has been played on this character that you're supposed to care about through this whole movie, the father and son. Oh, it's just awful. I could just go on and on about it. But
I remember that downer ending, but I was looking this up because I was like, well, Frank Darabont, boys, what in the fuck has he been doing? Absolutely nothing. The Mist was his last directorial movie, and that was in 2007. Isn't that crazy? Because
Wow.
like that guy made some of the best movies in the 90s.
And I like, up until that ending, I like it.
Yeah.
I like The Mist. There's some of the CGI is a little wonky. It's not a great film, but it's a good film until that ending. And then oh my God, I was just screaming at the TV when I watched it for the first time when I saw that. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on DVD. But it was
I actually think that ending pretty much destroyed that movie in the theater, because I don't think that's not a movie that I ever really want to go back and watch again, just because like I know like that's coming.
And like I say, I'm just trying to imagine the thought process of ending the movie that way and why they thought that was a good idea to end the movie that way, to play this horrible joke on this character that you're supposed to really care about, and then it's like, oh well, if you had waited a few minutes, your son would have been okay, and then everything would have been fine. Ha ha. Yeah, life sucks. You know,
I don't.
oh my god! Like I say, I'm so passionate about that. Like I say, and the movie's only okay, but that ending just so upset me that I just oh
Real
man,
quick here, though, we were
yeah.
talking about Creep Show 3 earlier. Our buddy Pablo, do you remember this, Uncle Bill?
Oh yeah.
He's in here. And he worked on Creep Show 3 behind the scenes. So, yeah, give him a shout out there. He mentioned somewhere up above the top that the Doodlesons had the rights to the name and DVDs were hot. And that's basically what happened. I mean, they just kind of threw together something they called the movie. We'll say that. But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
about it. That's
good,
all you could really say
good to
about
have
that.
you here, sir. Maybe we can get you on for a live stream sometime, and you can get your buddy James Glenn Danzig Doodleson to come on with you or something. We'll see. Number 4. This is the hilarious one that we always reference back in the day on the original show. From Saw 4. Now, this was Saw 4. I wouldn't know if this was Saw 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. It could have been either of those. The mini DV tape in Jigsaw's Belly Welly, baby.
Yeah, I had to go back and watch it just to see like what that like because I hadn't seen that movie since we saw it in the theater. Because all those movies after like part 2 run together to me really. But this is how goddamn ridiculous the Saw franchise got was that at this point they've got the detective, the Constantine guy or whatever, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And they do an autopsy on Jigsaw, and like inside of his stomach, this part's so killer, man. You got to go back and watch this. So inside his stomach, they find this like mini cassette, like DVR tape or whatever that they play. But the great part is that they show a flashback of him like eating it. He puts like fucking Vaseline all over it, and like eats this fucking cassette tape. It's like that big around.
He must not have a gag reflex or anything.
Oh god, those movies, they just got so ridiculous like towards the end. But that
Well,
was
then,
like
I guess it was Saw 6 that had the SD card in the dick hole that we talked about, right? The mini SD card.
mini SD card, the dick
Remember
hole. Yeah,
that?
He was preparing way ahead. I
What
fucking
was it?
hate those Saw movies, though.
Didn't they make one recently? That is, Chris Rock is in it, and what was that called?
Spiral.
Didn't it-
I think
Spiral.
that's
Yeah,
the name of it. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
I haven't
it
either.
wasn't very good. There's no bringing those movies
Well, there's
back really.
the Jigsaw movie as well, which I own that. I think I got it for almost nothing at Black Friday one year, but I've never watched it. It was like a really cheap 4K.
I just really want everybody to just watch that scene, just to see the flashback of him lubing up that cassette tape and swallowing it.
The yeah, but Saw 4, man, like honestly, like really after Saw 2, I get those movies mixed up. I can't figure out which one's which because whenever they got that Eddie Wilson look-alike, it started the detective guy in the trench coat. I was confused. I was like, they were doing this big, almost every movie in that, which it was out every year there for about 6-7 years. They would have some big unveils, and they would have that dramatic diddy 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 diddy,
Yeah,
and they would show like these flashbacks, and I'm like, who's that? What's he doing? Like, why would I don't know who that is, right? So maybe it's just not where I was. It was maybe where I was not invested in those characters, or it was just really bad writing, or a combination of the two. Anyway, you're going to have to do this one, Uncle Bill, because I still haven't seen it too. Mainly because you said it wasn't worth a shit.
okay. So
Yeah.
I'm talking about like the sequel to It, the new one that came out. Saw this movie in the theater, and some people really like this movie. I thought that the ending of this movie was one of the dumbest experiences that I've ever had to sit through, and like watching like an ending of a film. So in the end of It 2, the kids, or is it the adults? I can't remember. I think it's the kids. They get together and they've got It cornered and they start to insult It by calling it all these names and being like, "You're nothing but a no good piece of shit," or whatever.
You're a piece of it.
Yeah, you're a piece of It. And it turns from like the regular size It into a baby, like a fucking baby It with basically just a head like there, and it's like, and I was just like watching that in the theater, being like, that's got to be one of the dumbest fucking ideas ever. So, like, I get what they were going for. Like, I understand, like, what they were trying to do there. But the execution of that scene is so ridiculous, man. Like, I don't recommend you watch that movie because it's awful. But I do recommend you watch that scene.
Well, you know, and that is similar to the old TV movie of It. The stuff with the kids is pretty decent. But then when it gets to the adults, they're part of it. And it was that way with the TV movie, too. That was the worst part of it. And the first It, I liked. The first film. But, yeah, the second one is, yeah. And like what the scene you're talking about is just...
Do you think it's that part of the story, too? Because the second part of that story is really... I mean, I haven't seen the, chapter 2, but... Yeah, the second half of the It TV series is not very good either, really.
Well, that's what I was saying. The first half, the stuff with the kids, I guess, because it's something you can sort of relate to as being a kid and having friends, and well, anyway, it's just the way that it's done, and of course, the first film is kind of similar to Stranger Things. It takes place in the '80s. It has that kind of feel to it, that kind of nostalgic '80s feel to it, But I like the first film, but yeah, the second film is.
Just the whole movie has a weird tone to it where it's all kind of silly and just, I don't know. But that ending of, yo, piece of shit, that little thing's like,
Anthony Moore says It Chapter 2 has the worst anti-bullying message that I've ever fucking seen.
Oh, yeah, it's bad.
Continuing to number 2. And this is one we just talked about not too long ago. And I've got an extra scene from this same movie that I want to add to it.
Okay.
But you're talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. And Jay, I don't think Jay's had the privilege of watching
I've seen it.
Oh,
I saw it.
Oh,
okay. I saw it back when it was put out on home video. So I saw it. So it's been ages. But yeah, and then of course the Michael Myers parents are like gutter trash, and they're like, and just F word every other word, and of course Shuri Moon Zombie, and then it's just the white trash, and well, which became sort of typical of his style, but. Yeah. But what scene are you talking about in particular?
That's one of the scenes is the breakfast sequence towards the beginning.
Yeah, the breakfast. Yeah. Yeah. And God help us. It's just comparing that to the original film is it. The second half of the film, he kind of reins it in a bit and sort of copies the first film in a lot of ways. But up until then, is the character as a kid, Michael Myers as a kid. Oh God, that's just typical Rob Zombie and just everything. You motherfucker, you got and just white trash, And,
I wish I could remember the line, Jay. It's one of the dumbest fucking lines, but it's something like he said something like, "Maybe I'll get her to pull on my snorkel tool."
Yeah,
what shit?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what that line
something like that. What that?
Yeah.
But the best one though is where he's just out of nowhere. He's like, "I'm all busted up over here, bitch." He's got his arm in that cast.
Jostradamus 75's got a good idea. He wants everybody to skull fuck that like button right now, bitch. Look at the dumper on that girl.
She's got that dumper on. Yeah. That scene goes on for like 10 minutes, and every line in it is fucking hilariously bad.
and
Right.
it's they're screaming.
Yes.
You know, it's like that. The only tone they have is the top of their voice. They're just screaming every line. Every line is just screaming. It's just
It's like, give me some pancakes, bitch.
And then, like,
Whatever they're
right towards
saying.
the end of the scene, doesn't he like swipe everything off the table? And
Yeah.
like, "Hey, what are you gonna do?" Another scene in the movie too, and I remember like this was one of many eye-rolling moments in this movie. So one of the more iconic scenes in the original Halloween is the opening scene where young Michael, from the first person perspective, kills his sister. In the Rob Zombie version of this, God damn it, Dave Fark, who's like probably what 4 feet tall or something like that. He was like 8 or 9 years old in this movie. So it can't be as simple as him with the clown outfit on, which is what he should have had on. He already had the goddamn Michael Myers mask. So you've got little kid with this gigantic mask on his head stalking his sister. And it's just the most ridiculous looking fucking thing.
Oh, I tell you something else too. I just remembered though. Speaking of that movie too, we could do a whole show just on bad scenes from that movie. Is the scene where Danielle Harris gets stabbed and she's like, "Oh my god!" Yeah,
Fuck that movie.
that's still one of the worst. That might be the worst theatrical experience I've ever had. I still. To
well.
this
What
day.
about Halloween 2?
I don't think
By comparison.
Yeah.
I don't think that it was as bad because I knew what to expect. Like I had no hopes or anything by that point.
Yeah. Rob Zombie's Halloween. And the worst thing is it's totally a generational thing with this movie too, because if you were in high school, of high school age or younger, most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time, because I know Ryan here, our young buddy, feels this way. The way the truth, he sees the truth. But man, they have a defense for those Rob Zombie movies. Almost all of those movies, even the sequel, is getting like people put that in the top 2 or 3 Halloween movies. Some of the younger fans, and I just don't get it at all.
The sequel. There's a whole thing about the sequel that could be on this list too, but I didn't put it on here. And you know what it is.
Oh, I mean, the whole, there's a few things in it. I mean, the white horse thing, everybody talks about all the time. I mean, I honestly, like, I probably need to go back and rewatch. I don't want to, but I need to go back and rewatch it.
No, you don't. Just don't even worry about it.
So, do you remember what your number 1 was, Uncle Bill?
No, actually, I don't.
It was another remake.
I think now I do. Okay, go ahead.
I guess it was a quote from the Elm Street remake, and you put, "Why are you screaming?" And isn't it something like, "I haven't even cut you yet," or something like that?
Everything about Jackie Earle Haley's performance in that movie, I could put on this list. But for some reason, that line, that delivery, just the genericness of that movie mixed with the delivery of him being, with that fucking, he's like, "Why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet." And
You
shit,
think he was phoning in his role there? Poor old Jackie Earle. Oh, Curly Jaws, quit it with that. That gimmick ain't working at this point, pal.
no.
I haven't seen too many people defend the Elm Street remake.
Well, that's another one that I saw it when it was put out on video, and I've never seen it since. So
And I think that ended that guy's film career too. I can look that up. I don't think he ever made anything else after
He
that.
shouldn't. He shouldn't be allowed to make a goddamn thing after that.
Well, yeah, Samuel Bayer, he's part of the Bayer aspirin family, so he doesn't have to worry about nothing. But yeah, I'm looking it up. He actually did like it looks like some independent movies and some music videos and stuff, but that was it. I don't think he ever made another movie.
Hey, Nancy. Buh, buh, buh. I'm using this voice that I also used in The Watchmen. Fucking guy.
But the makeup looked realistic in it, Uncle Bill. It looked like he looked like a
Oh, yeah.
realistic burn victim.
Yep.
Oh gosh. So yeah, Elm Street remake from 2010 is the number one worst horror movie scene on this list, at least of all time. Anybody in the chat can think anything worse that we haven't mentioned on here? Let us know.
I'm sure there's worse.
Probably, but this is just maybe we can do a part 2 at some point in time and go through some more. But yeah, all these are pretty damn bad.
Jay, when I say, like, what's the worst horror film scene, what, like, immediately pops into your head?
Well, that's something that with me, if it's a really bad scene, I usually forget them.
That's true.
If it's like a good movie that's got a bad scene in it, that's something that you remember. And I'm trying to remember something that just sticks out as this really, there's moments in like Evil Dead 2 where like the effects are really show up like that flying eyeball. You can see the stick holding that eyeball goes flying, and the white man was in the girl's mouth. You can see the little pole that's holding the eyeball, and there's some effects in that are just kind of, you can see the string holding the whatever, so to speak. I don't know if you call that a bad scene, but you can see the seam show, a little bit. But as far as a bad scene, I can't. I wish I could, but I'm trying to think of something that really stands out as a bad scene in a film that I like. And it's like they're talking about the mist ending, which just upset me to no end for a movie that's just kind of okay. But the ending to end the movie that way was just so upsetting to me that you know. But I'm trying to think of something that's just a bad scene that stands out. But honestly, right now I can't think of anything that really.
Oh, Curly Jaws is saying Jeepers Creepers Reborn, the entire movie should be on the list.
I haven't seen that yet, so I don't know.
Amityville for the Evil Escapes. Yeah, I mean that's
well, you bring up Jeepers Creepers. I don't know if it's the first film or second film, but when given the reputation of the director, there's a scene where there's like these young boys are like sunbathing on top of the bus, and they're shirtless. And they're glistening. It's like they're covered in like oil or something. They're all glistening. And it's like really, the really lingers on that shot of them, sunbathing and their shirtless.
Yeah, that was kind of his thing, Jay.
And when you think of what he's done and so, yeah, that's cringeworthy, that particular scene.
In Clown House, there's a scene where one of those boys, you see his bare ass in that movie.
That movie is borderline, like, illegal. Some of the shit that they got in there.
But yeah, East Side Motel 6 mentioned the barbecue scene from Into the Pit. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
It's a bad fucking scene. You're right.
Phantasm Ravager, that was bad. That whole movie was bad. The Omen remake, yeah, I mean that one.
Julia Stiles, anything that bitch was in was horrible. You remember her? Like she doesn't really get to act anymore, but
the Critter fan says the kid's teeth in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Yeah, he's got teeth like one of the kids in Seven Little Johnsons. He can't close his mouth. He's all... But yeah, guys, Haunted Hobo. I know what you did last summer. Second killer reveal: Will Benson Ben's son. That is pretty bad.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
bad.
But yeah, guys. I mean, we appreciate everybody coming out. It's been a fun show. Jay, you still get nominated for all these awards, winning awards at some of these shows, and
Yeah,
everything else.
I'm pleased with that. It's picked up some awards and but it's for some reason India film festivals. It's doing really good in festivals in India, which
Hmm.
is weird. It's won a bunch of awards in India, but they've got a lot of film festivals, and I entered a bunch of them, and there's a whole bunch of them, and it's got like best international short film and what they call special jury awards and that kind of thing. But yeah, India of all places. But yeah, it's
Well,
um,
we're big in Norway.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah.
there was one in Singapore, won an award in Singapore, and but yeah, so yeah,
Um,
I'm pleased with it.
Very cool. Eastside Motel 6 is asking, can we get a Clown House commentary, Uncle Bill?
No.
Well, there is a baller and shot caller spot open that just opened up 2 days ago.
Going, go in there and request us to.
If you want to be a baller and shot caller, boys, request it.
God.
But yeah, that's one that was an uncomfortable watch. We did a whole video on it was a tragedies in Tinseltown, very popular video that we did on Clown House.
Yeah.
There is a lot of Hellord fans in Norway, yes, as well.
Well,
Well,
I spoke of my sister coming to visit, a few weeks ago, and we watched the thing with Uncle Bill, and we went to Waco. We went to a bunch of thrift stores, and all day long, our favorite saying was, "I don't give a Frenchman's fuck."
Yeah.
We that stuck out, and we were saying that all day long. And I can say that and get Kathy just screaming with laughter. I don't give a Frenchman's fuck, and she was like, "Ah." So
I think I was talking about Dolby Atmos. I said something. I don't give a Frenchman's fucking to a Rolling
I don't
Donut
give a
about
Frenchman's fuck, and that was
Dolby
just
Atmos.
I still use that one. I swear that was yeah. I picked up a catchphrase.
Dolby Atmos is like today's Blu-ray, right? Because back in the day, Uncle Bill compared Blu-ray to Crystal Pepsi.
Well, and I got a couple of months ago. I got a 4K TV, and I think it's a Samsung. It's 55 inch, but I haven't got any way to watch 4K movies yet. I haven't got a player, so any of you guys see one on sale or something, let me know somewhere at Walmart or something. Because all we got in my head is Walmart, but I
Well,
got to go to Waco and
Black Friday is coming up shortly. I would almost guarantee there's going to
that
be a
might be
4K
what I'm going to
player.
buy on Black Friday. Is it get me a 4K player?
Yeah, I'm
and
sure there'll
it
be
plays
one.
regular Blu-rays too, don't it?
Yeah, it plays
They play
everything.
regular Blu-rays. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And the cool thing about 4K is like it's like unlocked for every region. So if there's a particular movie that's out overseas that you want, it'll work.
Well, I've
Oh, that's
actually got
cool.
a 4K movie, and what it is I bought a box set of Apocalypse Now because I love the movie, but it's got a 4K. It's got two versions of the movie. The original, I only watched the theatrical version, but anyway, it's got a 4K version of the movie, but it had that documentary that Francis Coppola's wife made about the making of Apocalypse Now. Hearts of Darkness, which I really love that documentary too. But I bought it for that mainly, but it's got the 4K of the movie itself, so I'll actually have a movie to watch if I ever get a player.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have more movies on sale Black Friday as well, too, if you wanted to get some more. The mayor is asking, though, where can we watch your short film, Jay?
If you send me a message or something, I could post on the Dead Pit side. I'll just post a link to it. I'm keeping it unlisted on YouTube while I do the festival thing, and I'm going to slow down on the festivals around the first of the year. I've got a few, I think, in January, but I'm going to start trying to think of what the next one's going to be, the next film. So I'm going to slow down after that, but I'm keeping it unlisted on YouTube till then. But I can post a link on the Dead Pit site, and you can just go and check it out there. You just click on it and you can watch the movie that way.
Cool. All right, guys. But yeah, I guess that is it. Uncle Bill going on vacation. He's going to the beach, kind of.
Now, where
And
exactly are you going?
I'm going to Orlando. I'm going to Disney World, taking the
yeah,
kids.
there's actually not a beach in Orlando, right? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Maybe there is. Fuck, I don't know. It's been 30 years since I've been there.
But yeah, I don't. Well, Uncle Bill doesn't have Facebook, right? So I know that
No.
somebody in that area, I'll just say this, has had some issues with a Dead Pit fan. I'll tell you about it, Uncle Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, a little weird, but
Oh, I think I know what it is. Yeah.
yeah, in that same area there. But anyway,
That's
guys,
why I packed 2 pistols.
bang bang.
Yeah.
We'll have some more stuff coming up though. I reviewed the newest Fred Vogel movie, and I want to get Uncle Bill to check this out too, because it was totally out of left field. This movie, it's called the Final Interview, and maybe we can talk about it on a show coming up. I did a review on it. We've been talking about his stuff, and yeah, this is like a different Fred Vogel movie. This is like almost like a drama, suspense, psychological type deal. So when we talk about that, maybe in the future, maybe some interviews coming up. Want to get Don May Jr. on hopefully this month. So lots of stuff. Anything else you may be having up your sleeve here in a few weeks, Uncle Bill, or anything?
At some point or another, I've got to do Hanging with Mr. Hooper. Because that's got to be done. But other than that, I don't know.
I still want you, Uncle Bill, to do the series with Cronenberg. You have
I do too. Because there's so many films. That would be like another multi-part kind of series too, where I would have to there's so many good films as you go through there.
Yep. But yeah, guys, just stay tuned. The Patreon page. Anybody interested in one of these little boggies, go over there on the Patreon page and check it out. We just have a few of them to see, because I don't want to junk up the house anymore and listen to my wife. But we will catch you guys next time. And keep it creepy. Jay down there in Mahia. And check us out over at DEADPIT.com. Give us the thumbs up.
Up your butt.
Like, subscribe. And if you subscribe, here's something else you can do. Once you subscribe, you can click the bell notification, right? And it'll notify you anytime that Dead Pit puts up new shit.
Or don't. I really don't give a if you do or
I
not.
want you to. I
don't care.
Let's keep our community growing here on YouTube.
I don't like it. I don't want you to do nothing.
Listen, they need to do that, pal.
No, don't you dare touch it.
Thumbs up. Subscribe. And click that bell.
Hey everyone, it's Oak Early Jaws. Since spooky season is officially over, it's time to bring on the turkey, motherfucker. Time to bring on November. And here in the month of November, we got some great shirts for you. We got Faces of Death, Part 2. We got Creepy Stories to Tell in Kentucky. The Colonel Would Approve. We also got DeadPit.com. We got Dead Pit Radio with the little fucking Dead Pit dude on there. We got It Never Ends, a Halloween spook parody of the new movie. We got It at Night. We got the Rad Pack, Uncle Rad himself. It just gets better and better. So go on and get you some shirts over at Team Public. It just gets better and better, boss.
Thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. Dead Pit on Patreon.com is the only place to check out a complete archive of the old Dead Pit radio shows all the way back from 2005 on, in addition to the midweek shows and fan commentaries, exclusive podcasts, and much more. Dead Pit on Patreon.com if you're interested. Tiers start at only $1.